Whether your kiddo's in therapy or not, I think parent involvement is a huge factor in what we do. And I think that's why this course is so beneficial, because whether you're involved in your kiddo's therapy sessions or not, like the carryover at home and you learning these skills that we're teaching in therapy or that are being taught in these courses is so important.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Unmasked. Today, we are joined by Bree, one of our speech language pathologists here at Ability Innovations. And as always, we're joined by Nick as well. And today's going to be a really cool episode because Bree actually teaches one of our Therapy Unmasked courses that we have available. So we're going to have her talk about that for a little bit. But before diving into that, I just want to kind of get to know, why did you decide to be an SLP? What was kind of the driving force behind that?
I mean, I always knew that I wanted to help people and work with people, and specifically work with children. And I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher or a nurse, which are kind of different fields. Yeah. But I was like starting college and going back and forth. And I had kind of a mentor who was a teacher, and she told me, have you ever considered speech pathology? Because you could work in the schools or you could work in a medical setting. So
it's like a blend of those worlds.
Yeah, exactly. So she was like, you could go back and forth. You can kind of combine them. And I honestly had never heard about it, but I was like, sure, sounds great. And so I just went off to college and majored in communication disorders, and ended up finding this whole world that I had no idea about. And I just realized, how important communication is, and just thought it was a really great field to be able to support that. So,
and so you learned that, speech language pathology has a lot of moving parts, a lot of different things in it. And then eventually you're like, I want to be a pediatric therapist. So tell us a little bit how you figured out you wanted to work with kids.
Yeah, I mean, I've always worked with kids in some realm, like even in high school, babysitting, and then in early college, just working as an aide with kids in the school. And I've always had very little siblings, so I always had just a lot of practice of caring for them and being involved in that sense. So as I was going through college, I just kind of always knew that was the route I was going to take. And then I guess the fate just kind of aligned because I was in college during the height of COVID. And so a lot of hospitals and skilled nursing facilities where you would get practice with adults weren't allowing students. And so I didn't get to have hands-on experience with adults anyway. All of it ended up being with kids. So I was like, I guess this is where I'm going.
You're just a pediatric therapist through and through.
Yeah, exactly.
How long have you been an SLP for?
So I graduated in 2021 and it's 2020. So 4 years, I suppose, officially. Yeah. But my undergrad was in communication disorders, and my college was really great. And we had to do clinicals even for our bachelor's degree. And so gosh, I've been doing speech since like 2016 or so, I guess, cool. Just in a student role and a graduate clinician role, and then now as a full speech pathologist. Wow. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So in that time that you have been an SLP, what would you say are some of the most common cases that you work with, or most common disorders?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a variety, and it also depends on what setting you work in, because now I'm here at Ability Innovations working in a private practice, but I used to be in the school district. So it's so different. But I'd say in this setting, I see a lot of early language learners. So kiddos who are under 3, who maybe aren't talking yet or who are showing delays with communicating. We see a lot of speech sound disorders, so kiddos who have speech sound impairments that are impacting their ability to be understood by others. Also, kiddos who are using AAC devices, which is an alternative form of communication. So supporting them in that way if verbal speech is a challenge for them. We see some fluency, which is stuttering. Yeah, I would say that's like the biggest we see with the pediatrics.
It seems like a pretty big mix though of kids, like each case is even if someone has the same disorder, I feel like it's even a little bit different on how you would go about it.
A kid could have, we could have 10 kids on our caseload that are diagnosed with a speech sound disorder, but every single one of them could be working on a different sound, So definitely a variety of what we see all day long at the clinic.
And your approach would be so much different too with every kid, because every kid is different, but also because, if you're doing one sound with one kid, but there's a younger kid that's working on a different sound, like your approach might be different and might be more play-based or things like that, right?
Even though we're doing play-based, we're still using so many evidence-based practices. And so even within that, there's several evidence-based practices in order to treat a speech sound disorder. Right. And so depending on what sounds the kid is struggling with or how severe it is, there's different practices that may be better for one kiddo versus the other. And so always taking those kinds of things into consideration. And you can't just use the same approach for every single kid, because that's not using your research and the evidence that works. And so, researching and looking into the kiddo and deciding based off of what their challenges are, their strengths are, and also the research, which approach is going to be the best. So
yeah, there's an art and a science to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, I didn't know this before we had this conversation, but you've had the opportunity to be in the school district and in the private practice. What would you say are some like key differences between the two? And maybe like how can kids use both to reach their goals?
I mean, I think the biggest difference is the services that you receive in the school always have to impact education. And so the goals that you're going to be working on in the school are going to be tailored towards helping the child access their education and the curriculum. Whereas here in the private practice, it can be anything that impacts their life. And so if there are challenges that are going on at home or in the community, parents could use outside services to, target more everyday life things rather than just the impact on the education. Also in the schools, a lot of the times they're group-based services, whereas here in the private practice realm, it's typically individual. And so getting the school services are great. It's free to the families. I think it's always, recommended. The kid gets it while they're there at school, so the parent doesn't have to take extra time. But if the child is needing more individualized one-on-one care and attention, that's where the private practice world is beneficial.
Yeah.
You've had that experience too.
Yeah, I have. And just like you said, like it always has to go towards their education environment and the curriculum that they use in the schools. But there's a lot of things that the school district just doesn't really touch, right?
Yeah.
And parents need to be open to the idea that, hey, my kid might need a little bit more than just the services in the schools. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, is because I saw that too.
There is one more thing I wanted to touch on, which is Heritability Innovations. We've talked a little bit about how we are a play-based therapy. We also take on the term of child-led play-based therapy. Could you explain maybe what that means to have your therapy session be child-led and how you can make that important to the child to where they can still reach their milestones and goals?
So I think rather than being clinician directed, where we're coming in with this whole plan and agenda of this is exactly what the child's going to do and this is how we're going to make it work, instead we kind of go in with flexibility and allow the child to guide the activities of the session. And then we implement our therapeutic practices and whatever goals the child is working on within that. So if they choose they want to do Play-Doh today, then we're going to be going in with the mindset of this is what we're working on today within whatever activity the child chooses. So if we're working on increasing vocabulary today, maybe during Play-Doh, we're going to be modeling different actions and making different shapes and, increasing vocabulary in that way. And the benefit of that is that it gives the child autonomy and it just increases their motivation and engagement and I guess makes it more natural to them. So if we're coming in with, we're going to make them say these words today, well, that might not be applicable to the words that they're acquiring throughout their daily activities and through their interests. So allowing them to direct makes it natural and allows us to work on things that are applicable to the child's environment and their interests.
I always call it like child authentic because I think that, if we look at how people communicate and how they talk, they don't just stick to strict boundaries and strict topics and certain words. They come up with it naturally in what's occurring around them. So I love that.
They're not robots, we can't just go in and tell them, you're going to say this
these
today.
words into you.
Yeah, exactly. They need to build their own vocabulary and have their own, they have their own voice. And so just being able to expand on that.
So we're going to just transition real quick from your therapy here at the clinic to this course that you offer with us called Under Therapy Unmasked, and it's at-home speech learning. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that course and the things you offer in that course and maybe who it's for?
So in the course, there's various topics, and I would say most of them are the most common things that we see as pediatric speech pathologists, and especially what we treat here. So it goes into different milestones and also how to support those milestones and what to do if your child is maybe falling behind on those milestones. So for example, it goes to early language development and then how to facilitate early language and then later language development. So lots of different topics that we go into. So this course would be beneficial for any parents that maybe just want to learn more about speech and language development in their children and want to learn more about what milestones to watch out for. Also how to support those milestones in a typically developing child, or if your child is showing signs of falling behind on milestones, may be beneficial for those parents too, to just learn some skills that we teach here throughout our therapy sessions in order to implement them at home.
What about a family that maybe they're already in therapy? Maybe it's school-based therapy, and they're thinking, well, maybe my kid could benefit from a little bit more, but we're kind of far away from Ability Innovations or other facilities like this, and they just want to try some things at home. Would this benefit them too?
Yeah, definitely.
Even if their kid's already in therapy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, whether your kiddo's in therapy or not, I think parent involvement is a huge factor in what we do. And I think that's why this course is so beneficial, because whether you're involved in your kiddo's therapy sessions or not, the carryover at home and you learning these skills that we're teaching in therapy or that are being taught in these courses is so important because, we see the kiddo 30, 45 minutes per week, but parents are with their kids all day, every day. And so parents being able to learn these skills and use them at home is so beneficial for a child's progress. A lot of times that's our job as therapists, is to teach the parents how to do it and to coach them along and use our expertise in order to give them that support at home, because that's really where a big part of the progress takes place.
I see the kids flourish. I see that a lot too, that we we get these snapshot views of kids. And sometimes just because we're in a clinic and they see us as kind of like the person working on that with them, we get all of the progress that we might see, but they may not see that at home.
Yeah.
And so if the parents can learn how to be that therapist at home, that could be super empowering because they're spending the bulk of their time communicating at home with their parents. I love that.
And I think like so much, like that's our goal as therapists, right? Is not for the kid to just be seeing us for 30 minutes a week for the rest of their life, but for them to make progress, for parents to learn how to do this on their own, and like for eventually as the kiddos make more and more progress, for us to be like this sounding board to bounce ideas off of, and try this at home or do this. And so
here's some quick tips.
Yeah. We're like,
to try.
We should be like the problem solvers eventually, not like fully trying to, quote unquote, fix it. Or,
if you want to fix your kid, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Come and bring them here. It's not about that. We're part of the village, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I was also going to say too, I think the education aspect of it is really important too, because as a parent, if you're educated on what your child is going through, or maybe what certain speech delay or disorder, or I know you have a section in your course on using an AAC or stuttering. So if your child is experiencing those, it's important to understand, why is my child going through this, and how can I help them, and how can I better understand what they're going through and why they're doing what they're doing. And so I think that is also an important aspect of the courses, especially the ones you teach, where there is that educational component of this is the disorder, this is what we've researched on it, this is what we know about it, and this is what you can do to help your child at home. So I think that's a really good point.
And I also see too that this course would really be something that a lot of parents would go, I don't know if my kid really needs speech services, but I have this feeling that they might, and I can try this out, try things at home, and then I can get a better idea of, oh yeah, my kid's really struggling with this. They need more help than I can give them, even with this course. Or they'll be like, well, I think I can get them through this, and we can work on this together at home. So it can really be like that, like split in the road where, yes, I can help them with this, or yeah, I got this course and it was a great segue to getting more and involved help. Yeah. And it could be a really, really powerful tool for parents.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we live in such an age where it's like information overload. There's just information everywhere. And if you start having a worry about your child's speech development, then all of a sudden your Instagram's going to be filled with videos about speech development, And so I think that's another thing I love about the course is it's just like consolidated information, which for me would be super beneficial because, again, all the information that's out there can just be overwhelming sometimes.
And you're a licensed professional.
Right. Yes.
That was also what I was going to say is there's a lot of good information online, right? But there's a lot of bad information and misinformation out there.
And it's hard, for people, who haven't received the education to know like which information is true and which information is false. So another idea that I just had is a lot of times there are really long wait lists for services in places, or even if you're trying to get your child an IEP at school, it can be like a 3 to 6 month process. Wow. Or because it's usually like 3 months just to get the evaluation done. But before that, you may have to go through a process of even agreeing to the evaluation. And then a lot of private practices, there's month-long wait lists. So I think this course could also be a good segue for those parents that are in the waiting. Maybe you have intention to get services, but you just can't quite get there yet because of insurance or wait lists. And so this may be beneficial for those parents to start working on things ahead of time.
And we've tried to make all of our courses as attainable as possible for all of our families and anyone that's interested. So your course is for sale for $29.99 as a flat fee. Or you can sign up for our Therapy Unmasked membership, which is $14.99 a month. and that gets you access to every course that we offer.
Which includes OT and
OT
feeding.
and PT and feeding,
right.
and even your speech one. So
so if you're seeing lots of things, you could definitely take advantage of that. Yeah.
So thanks for talking to us about that. I really appreciate it. I had one more question for you, and then I'm sure Nick might have one more. He has a favorite question he likes to ask everyone. But my question is, what are some of your favorite activities to do here at Ability Innovations? Because we have a lot of toys and we have a lot of fun here. If you could pick like maybe your top 3 favorite activities to do here, what would it be?
I love doing swings. I feel like
how many speech paths can say that? Because usually they have to stay away from the swings, but
that's true.
Here you get to use a swing.
Yeah, I love the swings. A lot of the kiddos that we see have like some sensory needs also. And even if they don't, I mean, kids are just active and they like to be busy. And so I love the swings because a lot of times it just gets the kids the movement they need to be able to focus and work on some speech stuff. So sometimes we're like sitting on the big long bench swing together and we're just doing speech sounds the whole time. And that just like keeps them steady because in their mind, they're doing something, they're swinging, but we're working the whole time. So I love the swings. I love doing sensory bins like the Play-Doh or the rice bins. There's so many actions and sounds that you can implement into those. And that also keeps the kids really focused and engaged in one activity. And usually we get a lot of opportunities to model, and the kiddos are really interested in repeating and trying to mimic your actions. And so we get a lot of engagement with those. I love like all the cause and effect toys. We get a lot of good opportunities and ability to kind of pause and allow the child to interact and turn take. So
yeah,
awesome.
Cool.
That's great.
Well, and my question is, and we ask this of everybody too, but we've got this superhero theme at Ability Innovations. And we all, we've asked before, like, what's your favorite superhero? But my question is a little bit deeper. As you've gone through your like speech path journey and you've realized like, hey, I've got these really neat abilities. What's one of your superhero abilities that you've learned about yourself as you've been a speech path?
My ability to just like build rapport with kiddos and families. I've been able to like build really close relationships with the parents and like the family unit as a whole. And I feel like that really helps, like you said earlier, the village that we are, and just providing the kiddos with the best care possible, because then we're able to have open communication back and forth. And that really provides, the best therapy possible for the child, because we're really able to determine what their strengths and challenges are. And I just think it's so important for effective therapy.
Yeah. Well, and what a rewarding superpower too. So,
yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, definitely an important one to have here for sure.
Yeah. And that's what I love about this setting too, is I guess that's another difference with the schools, is you don't get to see parents much or talk to them much, except for, once a year at the IEP meeting. So I love being able to see the parents every session and talk with them and connect with them.
All righty. Well, thank you for joining us today, Bree. We appreciate it. We know you have a session you've got to get back to
That's
soon.
okay.
But
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. We'll wrap things up. As always, Therapy Unmasked is brought to you by Ability Innovations. Head on over to our website, www.abilityinnovations.com. We've got tons of great things going on right now. We have summer camps that you can sign your kid up for. We have everything from executive functioning to sensory. We've got a book club one. There's lots of different options for you. So take a look at that. And as we talked about today, we do offer those courses that you can sign up for. We've got speech, physical therapy, and lots of occupational therapy courses that are available. And we even try to offer as many free resources to you guys as possible. Our licensed therapists, they write blogs for us all the time that we put up on the website. And we have podcast episodes, and we even have like a free milestones chart that you can go and download and see if your kid is right where they're supposed to be in their growth and development. So all of that being said, we're so grateful to Bree for joining us today. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.